Okay, Revelation in Plain Language, Part 7. We're going to pick up where we left off on the numeric numbers, figurative numbers. We were at 3.5 days. Now, we already know that 3 is confirmation of death, but when this half days is added, something else is significant as unto God and specific. A brief time and then some, undetermined, of confirmation of death, and in time as unto God, with confirmation and purpose. 2300 days, two indefinite periods of time, as 1,000 two times, or ages. 300, or a half time. In other words, a time times and a half. All right, just another way of saying that. 1,290 days, an indefinite, undetermined period of time representing a time not due. The Christ has come is false. 1,335 days, an indefinite, undetermined period of time representing a time due. The Father knows. The Christ comes. Blessed is he that waits. The sign is given and true. This term also represents entrenched long suffering through the idea of oppression. A time times and a half time, from one age to another, and to a brief time of the last age. For example, the Mosaic age unto the Christian age, and a brief time of the kingdom age, shall be the end of all these things. Also Christ, beast, kingdom, or Mosaic, Christ, or Christian kingdom age. Weapons of heaven and earth. Instruments of heaven and earth in the hands of two eternally opposing opponents, Jesus and Satan, used to manipulate the affairs of heaven and earth. Jesus is the worthy Lamb, worthy to open the seals of these weapons, to reveal to mankind what they are. The idea that the fight is somehow fixed is a common misconception. Satan wants God's people to believe this lie. We have much to learn from the temptation of Christ. Not only does he fast 40 days to prepare, even Satan quotes a verse to the effect that this is not a fixed event. Even though we know Satan does not have the creative power or Godheadness that Jesus has, since when do we ever see anything God created take the Lord to a high mountain apart, and in a moment show him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time? That kind of power clearly illustrates that this foe has the potential to win if allowed. However, many opportunities are lost through wickedness, and many are gained through truth and righteousness. God's people must understand that they have a role to play, and that our individual victory is not set in stone. We must do our part. So also insofar as the kingdom's victory, it is up to the saints willing to live daily and stand in the face of death for righteousness' sake, to show this evil adversary we serve God only. These are the weapons, the seals that whereby they are opened, the color of the horse, and the weapon, and what they are represented by. In other words, these are weapons used in the hand of two eternally opposing opponents, Jesus and Satan, that which takes away peace or war, famine, poverty, climate, markets. Some of these are used more by Satan and others are used more by Christ. Mass murder, death, killing controlled by death or murder. We have the seal 5, 6, and 7. We have the prayers of the saints. That was phenomenal to me when I realized how powerful the prayers of the saints are. I hope we also realize how powerful the prayers of Satan's people are as well. That's important. These are weapons. Sixth is the earth or catastrophic events, mass destruction. The seventh seal turned out to be 7 trumpets, which are the warning signs or warning mechanisms, or um, the warning. I guess what I should say is the warning system that is used of God throughout time to turn man from his wickedness, the kind of wickedness that would bring him even more suffering had not God intervened. God's provision for the protection of the saints during world tribulation. When God uses these punishments upon the nation or nations, he seeks to prevent them from self-annihilation and greater sinful consequences. Of Israel, God's people, a congregation, 12, of an indefinite, uncertain amount, thousands, are prepared unto protection of God from every tribe, the literal or spiritual Israel. So when we see 12,000 and certain tribes of Israel, we have to understand and realize that the church is also of that spiritual Israel, and that these tribes are not the tribes as in literal, but as in spiritual. And there are 12 congregations of 1,000, or that is undetermined, uncertain, indefinite amount of individuals sealed unto God's protection throughout time. Those that serve God are sealed and protected of God. The idea that God seals them in their forehead expresses the interaction of God with his people prior to the tribulations. These facts bear upon that idea. God knows all things of the events during the judgment of God upon the world. God knows his people as well as all people, and where they will be, and what decisions they will need to make to place them in God's protective plan. Okay, those decisions might not bring us into wonderful, nice, little comfortable positions in our life. They may be very strenuous, but it will protect us ultimately from the tribulation that God brings upon the world. He therefore orders their steps and prepares his people. He does this by bringing certain events into their lives that condition them to make the decision. They have to make the choice. But God knows how to work his people, and this is what he does. He orders their steps. Okay? They have to make the decision which will bring them into God's protective plan. Corrective warnings of God used to prevent mankind from self-destruction. These punishments ensue as a result of God's written and unwritten word, as God has put in man's heart to know right from wrong from the beginning. Consider the flood. Also, they are used of God upon every nation throughout time, illustrating God's interaction with all nations and further illustrating the responsibility of all mankind to God, to the knowledge of good and evil which God has placed in mankind. We look at the first corrective warning, trumpet 1. The loss is depicted by fire. Fire has always illustrated or figuratively illustrated punishment, and fire and hail, I'm sorry. In other words, as in crop or cattle failure, unto blood, human suffering. See also Exodus, Egypt, plague upon the earth. Extent of damage are the common folk, and the important people are affected by this primarily, represented by the grass or common folk, and trees, important people. The ideal of the loss is the whole crop and the cattle. Trumpet 2, depicted by burning mountain. Now that's even more burning. A greater fire of punishment. Extent of damage is most of the common people and important people, and some of the privileged and elite too, represented by the sea or 2/3 of the earth's surface, as in sea, common important people, creatures. Notice life as in physical life with breath, Strong's 5590, and that is of the sea and ships. Cattle and industry is affected here. Idea of the nation is stricken by a horrible injury. Example, besieged, poverty, lack of water, food. The third trumpet illustrates or is depicted by a great star. Now that's even more burning and punishment. The extent of damage is the common folks, most of the privileged people, and some of the elite. They're represented by the fountains of water, bitter drought, possible disease, wormwood, sick, bitter. The idea of having a few cities taken by the enemy, and all the women and children are slain and burned. I'm sorry we're out of time, but thank you once again.